How goes 2024 so far?
Just prepping for a G.I. Joe video, trying to get it out before the end of the month.
So, the rumors of all this turning into an anime channel are greatly exaggerated, you would say.
No, I'm not turning into an anime channel.
That's good to know, because given how your hair is thinning, the last thing you need is the ire of weebs.
You were very likely manufactured the same year I was born, my friend. So we're heading to the great unknown at the same pace. Losing hair is like losing arms.
Wait a second. Did you just... with the shirt? How?
Huh? Look, I don't know what you're trying to say, but I gotta get started on this video. I'm burning daylight.
What the...
Good morning.
Gah!
Jumpy today, are we? You look like you just saw Natalie Portman's ghost.
His shirt changed right in front of me.
Michael would never change his shirt in front of you.
No, it changed on its own. For the briefest of moments, I swear.
To what?
I don't know. It was... two... cartoon women.
No, you just need to get some rest. You're seeing things.
Really? You're sure?
Of course, I'm sure. Everybody knows all of Michael's shirts have me on them.
Our latest video about Neon Genesis Evangelion sparked a conversation that I should have anticipated would be a bigger issue because of the anime community and how they operate. But I didn't think that it would go as far and as quickly as it has in the many mentions. I thought that people who watched any type of media would also be a little more savvy on how media is made, including these kinds of videos for YouTube. Unfortunately, right from the off with the live chat, there was all of these discussions happening when clips of Evangelion would play in the video about the fact that the clips were dubs. The clips were not the subtitled versions. And a lot of assumptions started to get made about how I watched foreign language material, and even going so far as to try and claim that the subtitled versions of Evangelion have a completely different character flow in the storyline, based on comments about Shinji Ikari, the main character who is also the biggest problem in the Evangelion franchise. And I thought that was really a bridge too far to make. That was quite the leap to say that the dubs are so different from the subtitled version that Shinji Ikari is a completely different character. They were inferring that that was the case. The problem with their logic, and it's one that I tried to address in the live chat, but I see that it keeps coming up in the comments, is that they didn't bother to ask me how I watch foreign language material. And I've been watching foreign language material, pardon the old man expression, but long before many of you were even a thought in your parents' bedroom activities. I was a film buff in middle school and high school, and I was already watching foreign cinema, both European and Asian cinema, long before I even went to film school. And then in film school, of course, I was watching both for my own interest and under academic obligation, all kinds of foreign film. That included some anime. How do I watch that material? Well, always with original language with subtitles. Always. Now, then you might be asking, well, Michael, if that's the way you do that, then why did you use dubbed clips in your Evangelion video instead of the original language clips? Well, there's two reasons. One, it's much more easily accessible and able to get the main ideas of the clips across to the viewer, because it's not just you anime weebs that are watching these videos. I have an audience of 121,000 people, some of whom don't watch anime, and if they do, they may not have seen Evangelion. and many of whom may not even watch foreign language as subtitles. They watch dubs. I don't judge. It makes it easier for them to access the clip. There's also a workflow issue in the editing of videos when it comes to pulling foreign language clips from media. Subtitles and the way they're generated in video files is very tricky when it comes to getting those subtitles to come back up in an editing program. You practically have to transcode 2 or 3 different ways to keep those subtitles visible when you pull the video clip into Premiere, because those subtitles are not hard encoded. They're not burned in like they are when you're watching a film print, like the original version of Star Wars when Han and Greedo are talking. That's burned in when you saw the movie in print. Now, when you watch it on 4K or Blu-ray, those subtitles are now, they're almost like composited over. They're an extra video layer. You know, you can turn them on and off, things like that. They're not part of the forced experience. That makes it very annoying and troublesome to try and get those to appear in Adobe Premiere from a video file or even a rip off of a disc. However, because I don't really see that as that massive of a deal as far as what the meaning of the clip is, I give that second priority to the audience. But as for myself and how I arrived at my conclusions about Evangelion, my entire script was based off of me watching the entire series and all 4 Rebuild films and the End of Evangelion film and the Death and Rebirth film in original language. I've always watched stuff that way. And in the case of older videos I've done, if you go back and you look at my Super Dimension Fortress Macross review, which is part 1 of my Robotech retrospective, and I believe I do this a little bit in Southern Cross as well, you will notice that when it's absolutely essential to pull in major differences, because Robotech was a cobbled together production where it was the 80s and they were rebuilding the entire dub with their own ideas, I call out those differences and manage to pull the subtitled clips so that you could see what those changes were. In the case of the Evangelion dubs, though, they were being done the first time in the mid-90s, and then, of course, they redid them again a few years ago for the G-Kids Netflix Blu-ray. Aside from people not liking certain pronunciations and a little bit of minor translation and just they were used to the other voice actors in the other version, I'm not going to sit back and be dishonest enough to say that Shinji Ikari's dub is so much more different from his Japanese language that he's a different character that's far more tolerable. I watched him in the Japanese. He was insufferable. Insufferable. And I have this feeling that this argument gets put up, it gets propped up, because what I've learned on YouTube for many years, dealing with people in the comments, a lot of you guys, not all of you, you'll know who you are if you're honest with yourselves. A lot of you guys out there and a lot of humans in general, they don't listen to what's being said. They listen to how it's being said. A lot of you guys are like dogs and cats. It's the sound of your voice, not actually the words that are coming out. I know that's possibly harsh, but it's the truth. From 12 years of experience dealing with some of you guys on videos where I'm speaking English, if I had just said it in a different way and did it like this, you guys wouldn't have had a problem with X, Y, and Z videos. And so when it comes to this argument about subs versus dubs and Shinji Ikari, I'm bemused, and at the same time I'm rolling my eyes at some of you guys, because what I think is going on is because the language barrier is still there as a kind of screen, like a screen on the window, it gives you just enough distance from what the character is actually saying and doing that it makes it more palatable for you. It doesn't mean that the character's different. It doesn't mean that the character is actually more tolerable. It means the sound of his voice is more tolerable for you in the moments where he's doing all the insufferable things because you aren't hearing it in your native language. The moment you start hearing him in his native language, being a coward, being verbally abusive, being insufferable, being a complete wimp, being annoying and harassing all of his co-workers or his comrades, laying there and not getting up and just whining the whole time. The moment you hear it in your own language, it's a lot harder to get around. But that doesn't mean that the dub and the sub are that remarkably different from one another.
You're just a stranger! I'm a stranger to you, fine, I don't care!
こんなの乗れるわけないよ。乗るなら早くしろ。出なければ帰れ。
I cannot pilot this thing!
Stop wasting time. Either get in the Eva or get out.
It's more because you now are getting the full experience of recognizing both the sound of the voice and the words. And maybe you can't handle that. So you tell yourselves, no, Shinji's not that bad. Not when you listen to it in the subtitled version. If you listen to him when he's speaking Japanese, he's not a little bitch. Yes, he is. That's how I experience the show. That's how I watch foreign language material. European or Asian. Animated or live action. I don't go for the dub unless it's the only option available. And if you guys are being honest with yourselves, there's very, very few examples, barring things like the Voltron dub in the 80s versus, the original Go Lion, barring things like Robotech taking 3 unrelated shows and dubbing them together and changing all this mythology to make it sort of work badly. There are very few examples of anime getting dubbed where it's completely off the rails from the intended meaning. Most of the changes that people talk about between the dub and the sub end up being minor. You could argue some of them in some productions are rather poignant and can skew the meaning of something while they're trying to adapt the English to the words and the mouth flapping of the character. So they're futzing with the script a little bit. But by and large, 99% of these changes, as much as I always prefer original Japanese language, when it comes to getting the idea across in a dubbed clip, they're not that different. They're not that different at all. Like I said, I've been watching foreign language stuff for decades. I have a ton of it in my collection. Like I said, European and Asian. As an example, here's Police Story 3 and here's Super Cop, all right? I have many, many copies of Police Story 3 going all the way to Eureka's 4K. And there are some edits that they took out because this was when they were in that mid-90s era of light cobbling, as I would say, light content edits on some of this stuff. But what was still there, it was by and large correct. There were some tonal changes based on some small scene trims and things like that. But the actual dub itself doesn't misconstrue the nature of the story or who the characters are. An even more overt example for me is Drunken Master 2. I saw this movie originally on subtitled imported VHS before there was ever a Miramax adaptation. The VHS tape said Drunken Master 2. When Miramax came out, or Dimension came out with The Legend of Drunken Master, obviously it was dubbed for English-speaking audiences to make it more mainstream. I was very worried going into this because I had previously owned it and seen it this way. Super Cop was, Police Story 3 was the opposite. I saw it this way first in the theater and then finally got access to the original Police Story 3. Obviously I prefer it as Police Story 3, but In this case, it was the opposite. I saw Drunken Master 2 first for several years before this came out. I was pleasantly surprised by this dub, because this dub, while it has some little comedic line changes, to sell a slightly different type of joke in a conversation exchange to a Western audience, Jackie Chan was involved in the dub.
亂講嘢，我八婆嚇！你叫我八婆？都好耐冇人咁樣叫我啦。你咪以為我唔知啊？你頭先同嗰個人打眼色眉來眼去咁，你着西裝得㗎啦，咪做你樣衰咧，差唔差啊？
Why don't you mind your own business, bitch?
Hey! Who you calling bitch? I can't let him get away with that. And who the hell do you think you are, strutting around here like a peacock in that bad English suit of yours? I think I should kick your ass.
Oh yeah.
This dub is, in my estimation, it's a really satisfactory and arguably equally hilarious and effective alternative to this. If I was stuck with this, as much as I would miss being able to hear it in its original language, this dub I felt was very well done. And if somebody didn't like subtitles, I would still highly recommend, with confidence, them watching it this way. I don't have a problem with this dub whatsoever. There are bad dubs. As far as acting and performance, there are bad dubs. There's no doubt about it. There are some dubs that change certain lines, little things. It's totally subjective whether or not those little changes are numerous enough in a production to make you say they've changed the whole tone of the production. The only one I know that deliberately did that to infamously effective results was Ghost Stories. Ghost Stories changed the whole thing deliberately because they were practically Mystery Science theatering it. They were riffing the whole redub of Ghost Stories over at ADV, and it's the most politically incorrect, hilarious thing you'll ever watch.
Which way did he go? Now we'll never find out who the ghost is. I hope to God you're adopted.
A police station! Thank God! I never thought I'd be happy to see one of those things. Oh my God in heaven, I can't believe it. It only gets worse when you get older.
I was so sad that I would never hear that voice again. His funny little requests.
Touch me.
His reprimands.
Touch me harder.
And I'm a size queen from the word go, you know what I'm saying?
Did I happen to mention how hung I am?
Shinobu, you don't look so good.
Run! She's a ghost and a bitch!
So it has its own character and flavor that has nothing to do with the Japanese original dialogue. Yeah, they follow the visuals and they put together the story the way they want, but they prioritize nonsensical, absurd humor and off-color humor, offbeat humor over the story itself. They'll never leave a laugh lying on the ground. So that one is objectively a different production from the Japanese soundtrack. But are we really going to sit here and say that Shinji Ikari's characterization is that markedly different in the subtitled versus the dubs? Let's be honest with ourselves. Or is this just something where a lot of you guys are trying to justify that Shinji's not an insufferable character in your own mind? No, he's totally fine in the Japanese version. No, he still quits. He still makes life a living hell for everybody that he knows. He still destroys every human life on Earth and then brings himself back. He's still a horrendously narcissistic and paralyzed individual that people literally have to drag along for reasons I don't even know why. If I'd been any of them, I'd have put a bullet in his head. He's dead weight. He's dead weight and then dangerous to put in a position to make decisions. And that's not something that changes with the dub. This is no longer the 80s. This is not Saber Rider versus Star Musketeer Bismarck, where 2 entire episodes were was either 2 or 4. I think it was 2. 2 entire episodes were completely re-scripted and reanimated by the American producers to change certain character and story beats in midstream so that they didn't have to address something else that went on in the Star Musketeer Bismarck original. Nothing like that happens in the dubbed version of any Evangelion production. So, where am I on the side of subs and dubs? Well, I watch subtitled original language. But where I get off the boat with you guys who are trying to be elitists about it is that when it comes to video production on YouTube, and I just need to use clips from the scenes that I find pertinent that I watched in Japanese, on my original assessment, I will still opt to throw in the dub because it is easier to get the point across to people who aren't used to watching foreign language content. Now, you can have a problem with that all day, but it doesn't change who and what Shinji Ikari is in the context of the story of Evangelion. And if you're going to stand there and continue to defend a character like that, then you must be a master purveyor of bad taste. I mean, wow. Before I end this video, I did want to address something else that was brought up about anime. They were asking it of me in the December edition of Man-Child News. There was this assumption, because of some of the clips that I was using in the Man-Child News episode, that I have an editor. I know this is not uncommon with a lot of YouTube channels where they get to a certain size and they manage to have maybe a director of photography and an editor. This channel's not big enough to have those, and I probably won't ever have one of those given the rate of growth of this channel. I edit everything myself. And the reason people thought that was because of the anime clips that were being used in that edition of Man-Child News. They were clips from the anime of Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. And people were shocked, thinking, there's no way that Michael at RetroBlasting has any knowledge of or an interest in Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. Oh. And that's why they assumed I had an editor that was just picking clips that I wouldn't be familiar with to punctuate certain parts of Man-Child News. However, the fact is, I'm a huge admirer of writer Hajime Kamoshida, and I became an admirer of his work because I saw Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, which I think is one of the best television shows I've ever watched. It reaches me with its writing and its characters and its willingness to, I don't want to say subvert, I flat out ignore, in many cases. It doesn't concern itself with trying to hit a checklist of anime tropes. Instead, it's trying to tell a unique, almost diet Twilight Zone kind of story, story arc to story arc, and the way it's paced, the way the characters are explored, the way that it reflects on those characters. I could talk about it all day. And people have asked me since that Man-Child News if I would eventually do a video about my thoughts on Rascal Does Not Dream, the entire series. Now, the reason I'm probably not going to do that for the next few months is because the series itself is not over yet. There are some adapted films coming out, but you might be wondering, well, okay, Michael's seen an anime that's presently on Netflix and Crunchyroll and a number of other services right now, and it's a few years old. So what? He can't really be that into it. If you're at all wondering or skeptical of my level of interest in Hajime Kamoshida's work on Rascal Does Not Dream, it was so impactful to me, and I enjoyed it so much that I ended up picking up his other adapted works in anime, Pet Girl of Sakurasu and Just Because, and I watched those as well. While they don't, in my estimation, come up to the level of Rascal, they really informed for me a lot of Kamoshida's storytelling instincts. And I feel like they are 3 bowls of Goldilocks porridge, where you've got Pet Girl, which is too hot, you've got Just Because, which is too cold, and you've got Rascal Does Not Dream, which is just right.
好きです。
本当に？
嘘です。
But if you're wondering how deep my interest goes in Kamoshida's work on Rascal Does Not Dream, and maybe you're doubting the impact it had on me as far as how much I enjoyed it, I own the American Blu-rays for Rascal Does Not Dream the series and the first movie, Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl. I own the Japanese Blu-ray box set for the entire series and movie. I own the Japanese box set for the DVD release of the series and movie. I own the recently released Japanese Blu-ray that has no English subtitles on it whatsoever for Rascal Does Not Dream of a Sister Venturing Out, which I'm hoping desperately will eventually be brought out in English subtitles on Blu-ray by Aniplex. And because I can't, get subtitles yet for Sister Venturing Out, I went ahead and made sure that I bought all the light novels, and I'm reading them currently so that I can get to Sister Venturing Out and understand every single nuance of what I saw visually in the movie. Because yes, I watched the whole thing. I pick up on certain Japanese words by now. So, and because I know the characters in the show, I was able to infer a lot of what was going on from everything else I've watched. And then on top of that, I turned around and started picking up the manga adaptations as they come out, because I want to have those as well. That's how invested I am in Hajime Kamoshida's work, and specifically his work on Rascal Does Not Dream. As far as Pet Girl and Just Because, I'm glad I have the anime adaptations to explore his career, but I'm not running out and trying to get source material for those. That was just more of trying to gauge where he came from on all this. And it's been a very interesting and enjoyable experience. So when I eventually do my video, based on the requests of people in the comments of Manchild News on Rascal Does Not Dream, I will be touching on those things in more detail, meaning Pet Girl of Sakurasu and Just Because. But it's going to be a few months before that happens. I want to finish reading all of the light novels that are currently in English, and getting my feet under me with the manga adaptation so that it's comprehensive. I wasn't going to actually talk about this show ever on RetroBlasting. I was going to keep it just for me. But there was such enthusiasm and surprise in the comments of the Manchild News that I felt, okay, people would like to hear my thoughts on this, so I'll eventually do that.
Baka.
And just to bring this full circle on the subject of subs and dubs, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai as an anime has no dub. None of them do. It's still all subtitled, which should tell you my preference and my process is watching original language with subtitles. I'm fine with that. I prefer it. So what should that tell you? I watched Evangelion all the way through with Japanese original language. And I can tell you, I'm not going to back down from this. Because of my experience with watching Eva in its original language, saying the sub makes Shinji a better character. Shinji Ikari is still a worthless little bitch.